This is going to be a hard thing for some of you guys to hear. If you are chronically online, and especially if you're lonely, please, please, please listen to this video, because I don't see other creators talking about it, and you are very susceptible to the dangers of what I'm about to discuss. It is psychologically tormenting. A lot of us can't even fix the problem because the first step to fixing the problem is acknowledging it. But how do you acknowledge a problem you don't understand? I just need to share this with you guys, and I need to let it out because I don't see other creators talking about this, and it's just very hard to believe that the creators with a lot of resources and money and PR and management for marketing, especially based on psychology, aren't aware of these things, and they aren't leveraging it to their advantage. Because the truth is when you prey on excessive parasocialism, it does benefit you more. For those of you who don't know what parasocialism is, it is basically, here. You're watching this video right now, right? The human brain, it processes these media encounters very similarly to how it processes real life interactions. So when you're watching me talk to you right now, your brain is processing this as if a person is in front of you and talking to you. Somebody you know is talking to you about this. Humans are very, very social creatures. It's a very big part of our evolution. We needed to be social to survive in a lot of cases. So for a lot of us, this is engraved into our biology. And the reason we process it this way is because we were evolved to process it this way. Technology wasn't really relevant to how we evolved as humans up until recent. I don't even know if it's affected us yet or not. I'm not a professional of this. I'm not professional of mental health, but I'm sharing my perspective as a creator, and it's going to be brutally honest, and I know a lot of you guys aren't going to want to hear it, but we need to talk about this. We need to get some psychologists or some mental health professionals or some neurologists to study this ASAP, because in the upcoming years, this is going to become more of an issue. There is already a loneliness epidemic, and when we talk about the dangers of parasocialism, which is basically, I was talking to my husband about this, but I've had instances where people have joined my Discord server, and I'll be on the VC, and I'm doing my best to be a good creator and be interactive with my audience, and people will pop on the VC, and I've had a few rare instances where people will talk to me as if I've dated them or as if we're close friends, but I've never spoke to them before in my life. And that's because, like I said earlier, when they see my content, they're processing this as if they know me, but I don't really know them. And that's a parasocial relationship. And it doesn't just apply to content creators, it also applies to celebrities. But anyway, there's there's a lot of limited studies and research on this, but when I say that this is going to become a lot more relevant in the upcoming years, I'm not just referring to parasocialism, I'm referring to anthropomorphism. So, it's very similar to parasocialism, because just like parasocialism, it also appeals to, at least the excessiveness of it, appeals to lonely people. I think most people have parasocial relationships, but the people that have excessive parasocial relationships, where they think they're in intimate or close relationships or friendships with people that have no idea that they exist, that appeals to people more and more the lonelier they are. A good example of that, because some content appeals more to these parasocial dynamics or excessive parasocial dynamics than others. OF content, for example, and I don't say this to hate on that content specifically. I'm simply acknowledging the cons within that kind of content. I think that if you are going to work in social media or as a celebrity, you are going to deal with this no matter how hard you try, but you can take the steps to avoid it. And some content is going to appeal more to lonely people than others. A lot of people ask, well, why do people pay so much money for CORN when it's free on the internet? You could just look it up for free. They're not just, I'm willing to bet, this is my theory, they're not just paying for the content. A lot of them are paying for this illusion of a more intimate relationship. When somebody's selling photos of themselves that are very revealing, it could be easily perceived as intimate and vulnerable, even though it's not really that intimate because they're selling it to a lot of people. But if you are the kind of person where you are very lonely and you're not getting these needs met, not just needs for, sexual outlet, but also needs for social outlet or more intimate and loving outlet, a lot of people look for this elsewhere, like the internet, for example, and these creators help them meet those needs. But it gets to a level where when you appeal to that as a creator and you're aware of that, and you're so dependent on those dynamics, you put yourself in situations where you are more likely to be stalked or harassed. And I think that's also extremely interesting, is I've noticed that creators that tend to have more boundaries with their audience also tend to be creators that they don't deal with stalking or harassment as much. I think the bigger you get, it kind of becomes inevitable, but you can definitely lower the rates of that happening, and I think it's also healthier for your audience overall if you do have boundaries with them. But parasocial, let's not just talk about parasocial. Let's get into anthropomorphism. So anthropomorphism is where you assign human-like qualities to non-human entities or objects to form a bond or relationship with them. So one of my favorite examples is from my favorite game, Portal. Your character has a companion cube, which is basically just a cube. It's just an object. But because of this excessive loneliness and isolation, you form this bond with this object, with this cube, as if it's your friend, as if it's a human being. Now, you can also see anthropomorphism with children. Children will assign human-like qualities or traits to stuffed animals, regardless of whether or not those stuffed animals are like human-like, like dolls or babies, or they're, stuffed bears or red pandas, for example. There's a lot of examples of anthropomorphism, and just like with parasocialism, I think that there are healthy anthropomorphic relationships, just like I think there can be healthy parasocial relationships. But again, we shouldn't focus so much on emphasizing that those relationships are capable of being healthy, because I see everybody doing that. What I really want to dive into is how easily it can become a negative thing and bad for you and your life and your relationships. Especially once you start to rely so heavily on these relationships, it can take away from real life socialization and real life connections, and I think that's where the problem lies. Watching your favorite creators is fine. It's okay to have parasocial or anthropomorphic relationships. I think it becomes a problem when it becomes excessive to a point where not only are you potentially harming your own mental health and well-being, but you are also potentially as a creator, putting yourself in a position where you're more likely to be stalked or harassed. These are things that they're very serious, and we need to take these things into consideration. I don't see other people talking about this, and you know what? If I had the money, I would want to study this. I would want to write papers on this and do research on this. I think I have a very unique perspective as a content creator. I wouldn't consider myself a very big content creator, but nonetheless, I still think that having audience, even if it's not the biggest audience, has provided some very valuable insight. And in this video, I'm going to continue to share that with you. So let's go back to the anthropomorphism. I think anthropomorphism doesn't just apply to companion cubes or stuffed animals. There was that one guy who spent, 13 summers with bears because he didn't like society. He didn't feel like he fit in with society. So he developed these very strong connections with these bears, or at least what he thought was a very strong connection, but the bears ended up killing him because bears are not humans and do not feel emotions and feelings the way humans do. So that ended up being, unfortunately, very tragic for him. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, his girlfriend, because I think they both lived with the bears. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, so don't quote me on that, but it's very interesting nonetheless. But also, AI. It's becoming more and more common where people are developing relationships or friendships with artificial intelligence. They're developing their own personalities, making their own girlfriends, their own best friends, and some people are even making their own parental figures using artificial intelligence. And I don't know if this would technically be classified as anthropomorphism. I swear to God, I looked up and down to do as much research as I can from this. A lot of the information I'm sharing with you guys right now is not it's based on my personal experiences and my own research that I tried really, 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 really hard. There just isn't a lot to look at. I feel like most of what I'm sharing with you guys is based on me having this unique perspective of being a content creator. I wish I could talk to you guys more about this. I'm doing my best to figure out where I draw the line with the boundaries I have with my audience, and I appreciate the patience you guys have with me with figuring out where that lies. If you want me to do a more in-depth video on this, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm just spilling right off the top of my head the things that I can remember, but I've been working on a paper for like 3 months now for an upcoming video. I don't know if I'm actually gonna make it into a video. There's a lot of papers that I've made that I haven't made into videos, but if this is something you would like me to elaborate on further, feel free to comment below things you would like me to look into or specify, and I'll do my best to include that in the next video regarding this particular topic. I gotta go now, but I hope you guys all have a lovely day.